Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Felix. This will be my very first YouTube video. I have recently been watching a lot of people start up YouTube channels, and they're encouraging everybody to start a channel. So we'll see in a couple years from now, I can look back on this video and see how amateur I was and have a good laugh. Hopefully 2 years from now, I'm making a lot more intricate videos. So today I want to talk about the Dave Ramsey's baby steps. So a little bit of background, I started my career when I was 22 and I was already putting into retirement, which is a TSP for me. And I had no idea who Dave Ramsey was until about 6 months ago. So my wife and I are pretty good about saving money and having an emergency fund. So by the time I heard about Dave Ramsey, we already did baby step number 1, 3, and 4, and we were on track of working on baby step 6. And then we didn't have a whole lot of debt. We have house. Up until recently, I had to pay my motorcycles, which are all paid off. I have 2 motorcycles and a car. They're all paid off. And then from there, I started following Dave Ramsey. So we did baby step 1, which was, save $1,000 emergency fund, which we had already. And baby step number 2 is to pay off all debt, which other than my 1 motorcycle, at that time, we only had the house. And we already had a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. And like I mentioned earlier, I was investing since I was 22 in my retirement. Probably it's been about 5 years since I was putting 15% of my income into retirement. And my wife is putting about 10% into her retirement. And we also get a 5% match from our employer. So, and my wife and I both decided that we weren't going to have kids. I am in my 30s. My wife is in her late 20s. We haven't made 100% decision yet, but we are pretty sure we don't want kids. So we NA'd the step 5, and currently we're on step 6, pay off home early. We are paying about $300 a month, which equates to about extra 2 payments a year, somewhere around the 3 payments roughly, I believe. And I think right now, both my wife and I together, our net worth is about $400,000. So we're almost halfway to being an everyday millionaire. So we'll start with baby step number 1. So Dave Ramsey says save $1,000 in emergency fund. He wants you to try to get that cash as soon as possible, sell off anything you don't need, try to get a side gig, and try to get that $1,000 emergency fund as soon as possible. I heard people having those in cash, hid away somewhere in their house. I heard of people putting it into just in a bank account, just letting it sit there and don't even touch it until there's an emergency. And number 2 is to pay off all debt. Dave Ramsey recommends the snowball method, where you start with the smallest debt and you pay that off. And once you pay that off, you go to your next one. And then you go to your next one. And then you go to your next one. And the reason why he calls it the snowball is he wants you to keep making minimum payments on all your debt. But as you start with your smallest debt, after that debt is paid off, you add that amount that you've been paying off to the next debt on top of the minimum payment you've been making. And so on and so on and so on. So by the time you're paying off your car, which could be anywhere from $400 to $700 a month, that thing's going to be paid off real soon. So for me, I just kept the debt on my motorcycle because the interest rate was low. And I had the money to pay it off, but I just didn't want to go into my emergency fund, so I haven't paid it off. And that's when I ran into Dave Ramsey, and he suggested that we should not have debt. So I took it out of my 3 to 6 month emergency fund and paid off the motorcycle debt, which was about $8,000 at the time. So for a little bit, we had to go back to our 3 to 6 month emergency fund, which because I just paid off my debt, there was a good chunk of it missing. So it didn't take us too long to get back to our 3 to 6 month emergency fund. As much as Dave Ramsey taught me, this is where I differ from him. I was still investing 50% of my household income while trying to pay off my debt or get my 3 to 6 month emergency fund. The only reason is that because I was already putting in 15% even before I knew who Dave Ramsey was. So I just kept on investing for my work retirement, which is TSP. Number 5 is for saving for children's college. Like I mentioned earlier, my wife and I are not planning on having kids, so we don't have to worry about that. I heard there are plans through Vanguard called 529. I think most brokers or most banks have them, a 529 plan. I am not too sure on what that is because I didn't look into it. And number 6 is pay off home early. My wife and I are on track to pay off the house within the next 10 years. We have about $160,000 left to pay off a $240,000 house that we bought for 5 years ago. It will take us about 15 years to pay it off. And by that time we pay it off, I'll be 40 and my wife will be in her late 30s, and we will have no debt at all other than, actually, there will be no debt at all. And the final step is charity. Dave Ramsey is a huge advocate for charity, giving it out, helping people out who are less fortunate than we are. And I agree. When I can and if I can afford it, I will give my money to charity. A little bit of backstory for me. When I was born with a heart condition that required surgery at 13 months old. My parents, who were not in a good financial place at the time, most definitely would not have been able to afford that surgery. But there was a foundation for kids like me, and they pretty much pay for the whole surgery, recovery, medical bills, etc., and my parents didn't have to pay a dime out of their pocket. And that is something I want to do. Because of somebody's amazing charity and amazing heart, that I was able to get surgery as a kid, and 30 years later, here I am, alive and healthy, and, thinking about retirement and, just living life. So when I get to baby step 7, when I can afford it, I want to start giving money out to these charities, these foundations, and maybe I can give a second chance to another child or another person and give them a full life like I was able to have mine. So again, this is my first video. If you have any comments, if you have any criticism, I will greatly appreciate them. Those criticisms and comments will be my building block for my future videos. If you can follow me, if you can press the like button for me, that would be amazing. And from now on, I'll try to improve my video taking and talking during my videos. And see you guys later. Thank you for listening.